Check. We'll roll right in here. So, what's up, guys? Sitting here with another guest on the podcast. A new guest sitting in front of me. I got John Theisen, a.k.a. Cragmire, from the Bloody Jug Band. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank
Pleasure
you so
to meet
much.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, the way I found you, I wanted to start there, if that was cool.
Okay.
So,
start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning. On Fridays for the last probably, I don't know, man, solid 2 years. I've been trying to find new music specifically, right?
Okay.
Got a good playlist, listen to a lot of sweet things from nostalgic in the past, some new stuff, and I found you in the Orlando Weekly, and I was like, oh man, read an article about you guys, top country band rated in 2024. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we're the genres are very minimal, so we get pigeonholed as the country band, even though we are not country, and the listeners will find out about that. But
nice.
I guess we're the next best thing.
Okay, so what I mean, you're more rock tune, but I didn't even know what jug bands were. But let me ask you, so what genre are you? What genre would you put yourself in?
Well, after 15 years, I think we landed on swamp rock.
Swamp rock?
Swamp rock. Yeah, nice. We're from Florida. A lot of swamps here in Central Florida.
Yeah.
But jug bands. So jug bands are... traditionally we started out 15 years ago as kind of a folk jug band. It was jug bands are from the Chitlin circuits of the 1930s, 40s, things like that.
Sure.
And literally were bands that were created with playing in the, kind of Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas of playing in your mom's washtub bass and, finding instruments, cigar box guitars, literally playing moonshine jugs.
Nice.
I play on stage, I play the washboard. And so literally taking instruments and, things around the house and making music with them. And so the jug band scene was a, popular thing in that era, predominantly in the black, communities. And, in 2009, I had a crazy idea to kind of dust that off and go, what would a modern jug band sound like? Nice. So when we first started, we literally, Seth Funky, who now plays a 5-string bass, was playing a, wash tub bass, and I was playing the washboard, and Big Daddy Germ was playing the jug, and we were out there, boom, 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 and kind of doing the jug band thing. What you find out when you have to entertain people for a longer period of time, or you kind of just progress in your music, gets a little bit more complex. You have to kind of get into a little bit more, kind of delve away from that.
That makes sense.
So after 15 years, we're more of a rock band, swamp rock now, still have folk and Americana roots, for sure, but got away from just kind of the simple jug band vibe that we started out at.
Okay, swamp rock speaks to me, man. I grew up in a swamp in Orlando, still spend a lot of time in the swamp. My kids love time in the swamp, so I hadn't heard of that genre until just now. So thank you for introducing me to swamp rock.
And I think that like CCR back in the day was where they were considered swamp rock. I don't think they ever went to a swamp, but they were called swamp
they
rock.
Were in that genre.
But you have to every label and every record thing, they want to know who you sound like, which is detrimental for a band that's trying to sound original. Yeah. And so kind of stayed in our own lane. We'd be more successful if we just said we were New Jack Swing or something. I mean, if we could really just throw ourselves into some pre-existing genre, but that's
how the industry goes, I guess.
Yep.
And dude, you had me diving into jug bands a little bit. I found, because of you guys, a Memphis jug band from the 30s, I'm assuming is what it sounds like. But they had this song like cocaine, something about cocaine. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Dude, that added to my playlist. I'm like, man, so when that comes on from time to time, it makes me think about you guys too. So.
Well, and a lot of the darker elements of what we bring to the table, people think that that's maybe a more modern kind of incarnation. But when you look back on old blues and all this kind of stuff and old jug bands, they were singing about dark, creepy stuff the whole time. And so maybe it wasn't mainstream. I don't think it's mainstream now, but kind of staying in that lane of kind of being a little darker and a little bit, tongue in cheek. We always joked in the early years that we were kind of the Country Bear Jamboree meets the Addams Family.
Okay.
We kind of keep it light, but also kind of keep it in that kind of spookier direction.
I can see that from some of your album names and album art, and even just obviously some of the verses in the song, man. You get that spooky vibes a little bit, but I dig it. That's right up my alley.
We appreciate that.
For sure. When did the band start? How old is the band?
Band started in 2009, so this year is our 15th year anniversary.
Nice. Congrats,
and on Devil's Night, October 30th, that would have been the 15th year anniversary of our first show. So
nice.
Playing live for 15 years.
Man, that's awesome. Is it the same band members from the jump, or have you had changes to that or added people in, or?
It's funny that actually Big Daddy Germ, our jug player, now just recently came back in 2024. He took a hiatus for health issues and was running sound for us. So it's predominantly out of the 5 of us that are left standing, most of us are the original members.
Wow.
And we started out as a maybe 6 to 8 piece band, or started out as a 6-piece, got to an 8-piece, had a lineup changes throughout the years. But Seth Funky, Big Daddy Germ, and Stormy, they're all original members.
Oh, geez.
I had to marry Stormy to keep her in the band.
I was going to ask you that.
Started out not as bandmates, and eventually had a child and got married. But Death Ray, who's the newest member, I think has been in the band about 9 or 10 years. So even the new guy has been with us for a while. Yeah.
Is that normal for bands to stick together for that long? I mean, is that a difficult task to do? I mean,
well, let me ask you, do you know any bands that have been together 15 years, other than, somebody's on a reunion tour? Yeah.
No, not that I could think of. That's why I thought, I was like, man, so what's the secret? How did you guys stick together for so long?
Well, you marry one of them.
Okay.
And,
you can't get rid of her, or she can't get rid of you.
You find the one that you can't get rid of and you marry him.
Nice.
I always, I was an only child growing up, and I always wanted to have a family, I didn't have one of my own, I didn't have siblings and things like that. And so we started the band as just friends kind of getting together, and, thought it was a neat idea, not thinking in 2009, if you would have asked me, would we still be together and be 15 years in, heard all over the globe and all these things. I don't know if I had that inception,
Sure.
But it's a blessing, maybe we never got to the success levels that I had anticipated, but we've definitely stayed together a lot longer than I thought, and we're still going strong. We have a new album coming out this year on December 13th, which is Friday the 13th in December.
Nice.
We're coming out with our newest album, but we had a new album out last year, and so our 5th studio album in that time, and so we're still making music and still playing shows and still doing it.
That's awesome, man. And it seems like having a lot of fun. I caught a lot of your music videos and some of the stuff that's out there on you, and I enjoy people that are out there having fun, man. And success is such a subjective term. Success to one person is very different than obviously the other, but you look pretty damn successful to me. You found a family, you're out there having fun. Like you said, you're heard around the world, and your music is dope, man. That seems... And you found that family you were looking for too. That seems like almost the pinnacle of success, if you will.
I think that's probably, we all are victims of that. In our lives, maybe not being as successful as we want. And then when you look back, at what you've overcome or how far you've gone. Or we've inspired many other bands and things throughout the years. But also our fans, very cult following, and we have people over the world that have, tattoos of the Jug logo on their bodies. And
nice.
I don't have any of those tattoos, but, it just shows what it means to people. So I always say if it wasn't for the fans, we probably would have given up, a long time ago. But they, really love us, and that kind of adoration or that kind of giving us that energy and that love, goes a long way. So that dope. Keeps us, hey, people are wanting it, let's keep doing it. Also, you said about fun. I think for many years, I can say candidly that it maybe stopped being fun for me because we were treating it solely as a business. It was money shows. It was all very tied up into the business of the band, which you can't have a band in this modern era without thinking of it also as a business, branding, marketing, all those things that go along with it. And I love those things. But at the same time, that steals, it wasn't always taking the show because you wanted to take the show. It's because we made the money, or it was a good obligation, or it was, whatever it was. And so, or living up to expectations of what people think. And so at some point, probably around the COVID time, we had some time off and we were hanging out and we were, man, we really just need to bring it back to square one and have fun again and remember why we're doing it. Playing into an audience that we've played shows at, the Seminole Harleys and all the big, dealerships and biker events and different things.
Nice.
And, not always, people don't always care depending on what kind of event it is, how you're strategically placed. When you play a Harley dealership, they want to sell Harleys. People aren't really there to listen to the band. Yeah. Good money gig, great exposure. But at the end of the day, looking at my best friend Death Ray, who's in the band, he's the guitar player, all of our family, we've been together so long, looking at them and kind of having that camaraderie and just in doing it for ourselves. And so now we're, solely doing it for ourselves. And because you also get pigeonholed in with the music, sometimes you want to, I think every band at a long enough timeline, wants to evolve and then potentially gets criticized, U2 or this, or, fill in the blank of somebody who tried to experiment and go a little bit left of where they were going.
Right.
And they get criticized for that. But then you realize that, who are you really doing it for? We might have stayed together because of the fans, but we're creating music. Even this new album, the new album's called Deviled Eggs, and it's going to be out, as I mentioned, on Friday the 13th in December. It's way harder than maybe our first album. It's more leaning towards rock and that swamp rock and harder rock vibe than maybe the Coffin of Blood album that had a lot of mandolin and a lot more Americana vibe. So you evolve as a band, but this many years in, I don't think that we're just doing it for ourselves and in releasing the music that we are inspired by at that time, and not we're consciously trying to not be pigeonholed to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I love a lot of bands, and I don't want to knock any band on the podcast, but there are bands that we've come up with through the years that they sound really similar to where they were at. And when you have to sit down and listen to that whole album, I want to have some people to get through the whole album, the whole catalog, and be inspired and see that progression. Where a lot of bands, we've played with some talented one-man bands and different acts throughout the years, and you can only stomach a certain amount of that, and you're going, sonically, it's given me a lot of the same, a lot of the same tempo, a lot of the same sonic thing. Where for us, we have a whole catalog to pull from and 15 years of experience to pull from. So we try to keep it as entertaining for the audience as possible, and usually don't try to pander. Will you play this song? We'll play that song. We kind of do. I used to hate bands like that when I was growing up. I'd go to see the band play the hits, and they're playing stuff off the new album. I'm going, oh no, I want to.
I'm here for the hits.
Yeah, I was a huge Flogging Molly fan. It was like, don't play stuff off Float. I want to hear the old stuff. Yeah. But now that I'm on the opposite side of that, and we're on the opposite side of that, we have to be inspired. And if we're playing the song, we had one song, Chained to the Bottom, which was our very first music video back in 2010, 2012, something. And we stopped. That was our main song. And we stopped playing it for almost a decade because it just got old to us. And then around the COVID time, we picked it back up again. Now we play it in every set, and now it's, we had fans that never thought they'd, that came around in the middle that never thought they'd hear us play it live. And now it's back in the set list, and we're playing it again. So sometimes you're going to have to let things go and got to maybe reimagine them or dust them off or find a new reason to love them and fall back in love with them, where if it's not fun for me to play anymore, or Stormy and I to sing, or the band to play, or it just doesn't feel right, we put that aside. We have enough songs to pull from that we can fill time, but if it's not feeling like it's inspiring anymore, we put it away, regardless. Unfortunately, regardless of what the fans want to do or not. If I'm not inspired as the front man or the person who's out there entertaining, we're entertainers. Yes, after 15 years, I don't have a problem calling myself a musician, and most of my work life is also steeped in the music industry. So I have no problem, calling myself a musician, but it's entertainer first and foremost. And if it's not fun for me to play, it's probably going to translate and not be super fun to see as an audience.
That was my question. Does that come out on stage? If you guys aren't feeling it or not into it as much anymore, would that come out from an audience view?
I would hope not. I would hope not.
That we're try not to. Yeah,
we don't. We're not very good at phoning it in. As far as playing kind of half-assed or whatever. We're very high energy and very dynamic and charismatic on stage, and so I try to sell it regardless if it's a cover song or if it's our song or if I wrote it or somebody else wrote it. One of the other members in the band wrote the song. I look at everything like a cover song. I've written, a good portion of our catalog, and I can't remember how I wrote it when it was all channeling from the universe, but I can't put myself back in those shoes, and especially because I play washboard. So if I might have wrote the song on guitar, I give it to Ray, the band kind of takes it on and evolves the song. So I can never really put myself back in those original shoes. So I'm covering my own tunes just as well as I'm covering somebody else who wrote music in the band or an actual, cover song from a different artist. So I look at it all as our interpretation and trying to bring good energy. But if I find that, on the last 5 sets that we've played, I kind of skipped over that one. It didn't feel right. It's just something that we kind of put to the wayside for a while and pull something else out of the box. Or we're always working on new music. So, that's always fun and inspiring too.
That's what I was just gonna say. That sounds fun and almost, exciting in itself to have it at that level. And then you're speaking my language on something though, man, about being selfish. Something that comes up on here a lot is sort of taking time to be selfish and doing things that obviously are important to us. So I like hearing that, man. And I think, from an authenticity standpoint, you guys have that. Every song I hear, and even just talking to you now, I much prefer people and things that I enjoy to have that authentic approach. And you can feel when people are faking it or phoning it in. So that's cool to hear, man. But is authenticity something that you think about, or something that you're trying to not portray out there? That seems a bad way to describe authenticity, but just being yourself. That seems like the way to go about it.
Yeah, and I think that everybody has to deal with that personally. I mean, I know many people in their own lives that not quite sure who they are, regardless of their age.
For sure.
I spend a lot of my personal time, helping people and trying to kind of, help them evolve in their own, empower them in their own respect. And even Stormy, perfect example is, Stormy empowers a lot of women when she gets up there. I mean, she's not a petite little thing up there, in her 20s, singing her butt off. She's 50 years old, and I'm sorry, wife.
But should I edit that out?
But when she gets up there and sings her ass off, there's a lot of women that are don't give a shit about what I do up there, and they're huge Stormy fans, and it's all about empowerment, and trying to, when I see a band on stage, you want to be that guy or you do that thing, as we're sitting here, obviously people listening on the podcast can't see my beard, but, I do exactly what I want to do when we want to do it. And we try to not obligate ourselves to do things that we don't want to do. Luckily we're not, so contractually obligated or have these things that we have to get forced into these things that we don't want to do anymore. But I think that we had to come to terms with that, being from Orlando, and obviously you said we're kind of in on the joke on a lot of the songs, and we try to make some of it a little bit lighter, where we play with bands that are hard as nails, and these guys are road dogs, and they then I go, oh, well, we're from Orlando, so we're considered to them, this diehard, roots band. We might be like the Orlando tourist posers, as for that, from that standpoint, depending on where you are on all the fence of, what genre you're into or whatever, and at some point you just have to be who you are, and we like kind of giving a wink to the audience. We like having fun. We like singing songs that have some major chords and some levity to them and some spooky things. But, being too serious, I think in general is detrimental to anybody. But on stage and things, we want to have that fun come across. Again, we're entertainers, and we are from Orlando, and this is where I wasn't born and raised here, but Stormy was. And, most of us spent most of our lives here in Central Florida. So for us, and, we've had a big part of the community, and I've done a lot of things in my personal life that revolve around the Central Florida community. So, this is where we live, and I can't change who we are. I think us trying to be, you talked about being genuine. I think the worst thing that we could do is try to be something that we're not.
Yes.
And again, if the evolution of music or Ray's writing some licks and it kind of goes in this direction, or let's explore that, let's see where it goes. And having to kind of live up to your own expectations of what you did in the past, or what other people think, or what you want to be. Yes, we're playing exactly the kind of music that we want, and eventually we had to stop apologizing for that and go, this is who we are, and
take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. And I'm not offended, if somebody's not into the music. I mean, it's obviously we're on our own little island of what we're doing.
Right.
And, I do believe that if you ever saw us, on an all night gig, you'd find something in that night that really blew your socks off, and you'd become a fan just by the infectious nature of what we do.
Yeah.
But, we've played many long nights in New Smyrna and on the coast, and played to tourists and played to different people. And, give me enough time and I'll do something that you're really going to, impress you on. But, that's just something that comes with the time and the territory, being seasoned. And, in the early days, we certainly were pretty green and we had to cut our teeth, and we did a lot of that growth on stage. So I'm sure that the first year or so, or a couple of years, was probably uncomfortable to some of the people in the audience. But there's also things that we were just playing a event a few weeks ago, and I was having a conversation with another musician that, it's not to say that the audience isn't smart. It's just that there are things that happen on stage that I notice as the kind of not the composer, but the person who's kind of steering the ship. Sure. I know every wrong, hit and, and every wrong note, and all those things. And if Stormy misses a lyric or I miss a lyric, I notice all that stuff.
Does that stuff bother you if that happens?
It certainly, really? Maybe not as much. I take it in stride now.
Okay.
But, but from an audience standpoint, many times they don't know, and they don't even notice it. So it's not, like I said, not to disparage them and say that they weren't intelligent. It's just that they're being entertained and they're just kind of accepting it all. Yeah. And so that one little off note, they're on to the next thing, where I'm thinking in my head, we got to practice that. Next week we got to really, we got to work on that. So yeah, there was many years that probably, got the best of me on stage, those mistakes and things like that. But even just accepting a compliment, it took years for me. And this is the joke we were having the other night was, in the early years when somebody would come up and say, "Oh man, really loved that song," or "great show," or "great performance," and I would say, "Oh yeah, great, but on that one thing I messed up," and and eventually you just learn to say thank you, because this person's taking their time to give energy and give love to what we're doing.
You should just receive it.
Just receive it. Yeah. And I would always kind of undercut and inadvertently and didn't mean to, but I would actually kind of steal a little of that vibe when you tell me, "Hey man, you guys are awesome." I go, "Yeah, but blah blah blah," and you go, "Oh, I guess never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about." And I don't want to do that to somebody who stopped. Nobody has to say shit to us, but if somebody took their time to send an email or stop us at a show or say something nice or take that time to want to tell us something, how our music impacted them. All I can say is thank you, because the kind of humbling myself. I thought I was being uber humble to no that actually we shit the bed, but thanks anyway. And
you didn't notice it, but we shit the bed.
Yeah, but ultimately, if somebody's giving that love, they're the reason that we're up there doing it. Playing to shows to nobody, if nobody was there, doesn't help, so sure. When people are there and they're appreciating what you're doing, just being humble and saying thank you goes a long way. We can internally deal with and refine some of the mistakes or kind of do certain things, but at the same time we're there to obviously perform to the point where nobody notices the mistakes, and so hopefully if they didn't, then we're doing our job, and regardless of how we have to deal with the mistakes on the back end, we don't want to I don't want to lead with that anymore.
That's interesting, man, because I think a problem with humans in general is we're our own worst critics. We think the worst case scenario or that thing that comes up that bothers you and almost distracts you from the other thing we talk about a lot on here, which is trying to stay present in what you're doing. It seems like, and ChatGPT is a friend of mine. I don't know if you use ChatGPT at all, but Jordan Peterson is a guy who does I don't know if you know who Jordan Peterson is, but he does podcasts, and he's a professor out of some college in Canada, but he calls it the best research assistant. It takes the place of like 10 people because you can search things real fast. But I was asking it what all religions have in common. And one of the things is all religions, no matter which one you want to look at, have some practice or some theme about how trying to stay present. So it seems like that's been a problem for humans for forever. Sure. So if you're up there on stage and you hear one lyric go wrong or one note go wrong, if that pulls you away and you start thinking about how you're practicing and those kind of things, those are the things that I struggle with, trying to figure out how to stay present in the moment. It's why I like podcasting, because this is all I'm trying to think about. It's why I like surfing and martial arts and some of this stuff. Sure. Because it's the only thing you can be thinking about in that moment. But that's interesting, man. Your conversation there is striking a lot of chords and the same type of stuff that I think about and talk about on here on a regular basis. So.
Well, and kind of riffing off of that, on the spiritual side, that's a huge part of my life and our life as a band. But me personally, and I know Stormy and I are on the same page, that being present, being empowered, living in the moment, kind of focusing on what you have and not what you don't have. You know, all those
comparison, man.
Yeah, all those. You know, I was listening to somebody recently, and they were talking about. And I was, even in my personal life, I was a life coach for many years, and I all about self-empowerment and helping people. And I kind of stopped in the last year or so. I stopped helping people that don't ask for help. I don't give unsolicited help to people.
Okay.
Because I walk a very spiritual path, and you know, the beard. I want to be the guru and the wizard for people as well, both on and off stage. And you know, I don't, there's a lot of people out there that need help, and a lot of it is really, I mean, we all think it's money, you know, we all could use more money, but, you know, happiness is a choice, and it's one of those things where, you know, I don't want to kind of negate people's depression or anxieties or these different things, but a lot of it is man-made, you know, a lot of it is things that we're trying to control things that we can't control.
Yes.
And so if we could just focus a little bit more on, you know, the only thing that let's just say this, the only thing that we can control as humans is how we react to things. I can't control that I'm in traffic. I can't control that, you know, I blew a tire on my car. I can't control that this gig got canceled because a hurricane came.
Right.
I can't control any of those things. And I think that we get super frustrated because we want to control these things. And it's just that's not what we're here for.
I think control is an illusion in general. You can barely control how you react to things. Right. Maybe you can get more mindful or practice meditation or use certain chemicals to help you get to certain ways of doing that. But I think control is an illusion, man. Trying to let that go has been one of the best things in my life, and it's a work in progress.
Yes, it is.
And it's fucking hard to try to stay present in whatever you're doing. And a buddy of mine that's come on here, he's been on a few times. He has a doctorate in psychology. Smart dude. He's a comedian. He owns a couple comedy clubs. We always call it comedian philosophy. Okay. But he explained anxiety and depression the best to me out of anyone I've ever heard. Is anxiety lives in the future, depression lives in the past. Yep. So if you can get to this point to where you are present the majority of your time, maybe you won't suffer as much from anxiety and depression. But dude, it's so hard to do, man, because you know, some of us are maybe more fortunate than others. Maybe some things have happened in the past. So that's why with kids really made me seem that, you know, most people are a product of their environment, especially early on. You know, my son's 12 now, my daughter's 9. As they age, I'm like, man, and meeting other kids and things their age, most people are just a product of their environment. And that's a hard thing for them to ever separate from. But I don't know what the answer is to trying to live more presently. And it seems like that's been something humans and religion specifically, no matter which one you follow or practice or preach, they've been trying to figure that out for a long time.
Well, like you said, you compared it to surfing. It's much like being on stage. I mean, time, we're kind of, you know, the band on stage, I don't go to a lot of shows anymore as far as an audience member, but being on stage, you know, we almost create this, our own little vortex of, you know, time kind of slows down or, you know, in that regard. So there's no way that if I could physically, it's kind of like all the things you have to do to surf properly. If you really had to think about all those things and you had to kind of go, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. It has to all happen so quickly. So for me to keep time for the band, play washboard, sing, remember the lyrics, remember the chord changes, make sure the rest of the band's doing what they want, cue the other people. You know, I couldn't in normal time do all that. But when you're in that moment, there's no time to be thinking about if I did the laundry or if I, you know, fed the cats before I left. You know, you have to live in the moment. And to be honest with you, that's, I think, probably the addiction of the performing. Being creatively, I find being in the studio very similar to being live on stage. This entire year we took off and we recorded our new album. We had a lineup change at the end of the year. We were like, you know what, let's just not keep doing what we're doing. Let's break the cycle. We're not going to play any shows for the bulk of the year. Let's focus on recording the album. And even in the studio, you know, when you're getting those takes and you're doing it, you have to completely give yourself over. And that's why I say many times it's like channeling, you know, because, you know, I didn't write, you know, some of the songs that you might go, man, those are the most profound songs. I probably wrote them in about 10 minutes. And, you know, and I can't really put myself in the headspace of what I did because you got to open yourself up to that. And I listen about most, you know, painters or any, you know, any artistic or creative thing, you know, we're all just channels for what's coming through. And I think the more you can get out of the way, the easier it comes through. Anytime that I've ever written let's just say it's a 3-verse song and I've written 2 verses, and I go, you know what, I'm tired. I'm going to put this down now and I'm going to come back to it later to try to get myself back in that headspace and write that. The first part, it might have taken me 10 minutes, but the last part might have taken me 3 weeks.
Damn.
Because to try to put yourself in that headspace. So now it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I get some inspiration for a song or something's coming to me, I need to stop what I'm doing and I need to walk over there and basically, do it until it's done, because it doesn't always happen. I mean, I can force it, but forced creativity is never a good thing. It usually doesn't work out the way you want it to. So, it's amazing when I'm probably in my least caring spot, when I just have a guitar and storming out there and I'm smoking a cigarette and I'm not really thinking about it. That's when it comes. But if I sat down and I know many writers and artists do this, but if I said on Tuesday at 3:00 I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write this music, or we're going to do this thing, I don't think it would ever work out. It's like you've stifled yourself with that thing. You've kind of hyper focused that okay, I'm going to be creative now, and not
interesting.
Kind of flowing, living in the moment to me is relating it back to surfing, to me much of where I'm at now in my life and where I try to keep the band is just in a flow state. And the kind of the spiritual side of it is, when you're in a canoe or something, whatever it is, you're going down the stream. It doesn't matter. You could paddle all you want and you're going to get banged on those rocks. But if you just throw the oar and you find yourself inevitably in the exact same spot,
the right path.
You're going to find sometimes maybe that path is a little bit more meandering. But we always think that as humans in this modern society, that it's always a direct line. But many times that direct line is more arduous, and yet that other one is a little bit more lazy lagoon, and maybe you're going here and you're going there and you're taking twists and turns you hadn't anticipated. But if you can just kind of stay in I'm not religious, but if using the word faith, if you can keep yourself in just kind of a faith mode of, I know it's going to work out. This is part of my path. This is part of my destiny. The more you try to shirk that, unfortunately, we don't always get to see. That's why the hindsight's 20/20. In the moment, you don't always see why that was necessary to have happened. 3 weeks later, or I had a music school, and unfortunately it closed down. And at the moment, I wasn't quite sure why that had happened, or why this band member left, or why any of these things that happen on a daily basis. Why did this thing happen? Sometimes you can't see it in that moment. But I guess if you just kind of rest in the idea that, well, I guess it was meant to happen. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I kind of leave the curiosity on the table. I wonder why that happened, and then. If you look back and you go, wow, if that bad, supposed quote unquote bad thing didn't happen to me, that wouldn't have led to this, which would have led to this, which led to this, and now I'm exactly where I want to be. But that messed up thing that you were really depressed about in the moment, or upset about in the moment, or angry about, if that thing had not have happened, you wouldn't have gotten to where you are, exactly where you needed to be. And so I think just kind of when these things happen that we would prefer not to happen, I just kind of take it in stride and go, well, there must be a reason for it. And
do you really think that, though? Do you think things are meant to be, or that there's some reason behind everything? See, I sort of lean into like, stuff just happens, man. People make decisions. I could go left, I could go right. I'm not religious myself, but I've studied it and I pay attention to it. Sure. I find it interesting. I think religion serves a purpose for people. I think it's a great sense of community. And I think they needed to try to find a way to keep humans in control, maybe a little bit, back to that idea of control.
Sure.
But I'm not so sure, this whole idea of there's a, in the Christianity realm, there's a plan for everybody. This is all mapped out. That takes away the idea of free will. But I don't know, man. I'm not so sold that things are meant or not meant to happen. I just think it is what it is, if that makes any sense.
Of course it does. And I think that if you're asking what I personally think, I think that we... let's just say maybe before we got here on this plane of existence, we got to read the book, and we got to read the book, and part of the fun of it was to forget it all, and so you forgot how the story ends or how the story goes. And so when you're here, the more you can keep your hands off the steering wheel, the better. Because I think that, again, we think that we're in control, and I'm going to go left. I'm thinking I'm going to go left, and versus like let the road take you. And for many years years, I was big on in this area in Central Florida. There's a MIMS, or a big Buddhist, temple thing, and it's got statues, and it's some of the biggest Buddhist statues in America. And Stormy and I went there one time just to see, kind of what was going on over there, and we bought a plaque for the wall. It says, every step of the journey is the journey. And I think that many years in my own life, I lost sight of that. Stormy was always about the journey, and I was always about the destination. Let's hurry up and get there. And I missed the journey aspect of it. And now to realize that, so let's have fun along the way too. And I don't know where the band, I have ideas where I want the band to go, and taking it back to the band, where we should be, where we want to go. But now I'm just kind of pleasantly surprised by all of it, and if this thing happened, cool. Well, then I do believe that if that thing did happen for a reason, how is that setting us up for this next thing, or what kind of sign was that? Sometimes, when you're using it very simply, like even stuck in traffic, not only are you not the only person in that traffic, all these other people are in traffic too. Yeah. But what did we avoid by not being in that traffic? If I was not in the traffic right now on a standstill, would I have gone out there and gotten in that accident? Or if you got in an accident, many people that have adversity in their lives and have, let's say, quote unquote, terrible things happen to them, that usually when they look back, that was the inciting incident that really changed everything for them. And so that kind of, or they really found drugs and alcohol and they went the wrong direction. They kind of missed the point. But if you can kind of just go, man, that was super messed up. People that, there's so many people out there that had terrible illnesses or things happen to them. And from that, they really found their calling and really found what inspired them, and kind of found their way to that. So I kind of I just keep that flow up, and and now this many years in the band, keeping expectations about what's supposed to happen is kind of out the window. It's kind of like, let's just do what we want to do, and let's do it when we want it. And if this thing happens, we had a big kickoff show at the Spooky Empire Horror Convention, and then the hurricane showed up, and then that thing got postponed, but then this thing happened, and whatever, if obviously that was supposed to happen, then it'll take us to where we're supposed to be. But the more you kind of throw kickback on it, the more pissed off you get, or the more you kind of get out of the moment, and you're so tied on why did that happen to me, and murder, and you're so, again, you kind of locked yourself. The minute you go, why did that happen to me, and you really focus on that, you've now focused, now you're completely living in the past. That event happened in the past. The moment, as I snap my fingers right here, now that is now instantly in the past. You can never truly live in the moment, because the minute you think you're living in the moment, by the time it gets to your brain and everything else, you're already out of that moment. For sure. But the minute you go, man, she said that, I deal that with my boss or people in the band, or somebody says something to you and you go, that bothers you. Now you're, instead of living in the moment, you're thinking about, when she said that really pissed me off, and you're kind of leaving yourself, and you've left that moment now, and now you're kind of living in the past of. And most people that affect you or do something negative to you, most of them are not doing it intentionally. Sure. We're just taking it wrong, or we're being bothered by that. And so to kind of dwell on that, the dwelling is the past, and that doesn't really help anything.
Might make you depressed, because you're sitting there thinking about things in the past.
Right. And so Stormy, I know, gets pissed because she has a memory. Her and Seth Funky have memories like elephants. They remember everything. They go, I don't remember that. Oh, that was a Tuesday. You were wearing a blue shirt. It was a thing. And I kind of leave the past in the past. Me too. And unless I'm in a conversation like this and you ask me a pointed question about something that happened, I don't sit and think about high school. I don't think about college. I don't think about what I did 3 weeks ago. It's like, let's keep moving forward. But to your point, I also, I think that when you focus too much in the future, starting a thing, manifesting something, you have to put it out there, and you have to think far enough advanced to go where you want it to end up, where do you want to be. But, trying to micromanage every step of that path is super dangerous, because maybe you don't know the right way, and I always talk about like our higher consciousness. If we're in the valley and our spirit or our higher consciousness, anybody who does psychedelics knows,
oh, for sure.
Maybe you get it, you touch base with your higher consciousness. The higher consciousness is up there in the mountain, and they can see that up here at the left, the curve's coming, and watch out for that. But we're down here in the valley, and we're really here to not be that. We're here to just enjoy the ride.
Yes.
And I, don't like to know what's coming up. It took many, many years to get to the point where I'm at now, that what's coming up around the bend, it's okay to not know. It used to really bring a lot of anxiety to me that I used to not even like to go to a new venue because I didn't know, where I'm supposed to sit and how I'm supposed to walk in and who's the person I talk to. And, I had a lot of anxiety around new things. Yeah. And now it's kind of like, shit, the old stuff gets so boring. Yeah. I love new experiences and going to that. And it's like, take me to someplace I've never been. Yeah. Let me have something that a completely genuine experience. Yeah. But then as soon as you do that, and by the fifth time you do that thing, you're going, okay, I'm kind of sick of that now. Give me that new adventure there. So, Disney is kind of living in Central Florida is kind of that like forced nostalgia. Sure. That I'm going back and I'm going to ride the same ride that I rode as a kid. I'm going to take my kid there. And that's very beautiful. There is something to be said for that. But not knowing what comes tomorrow is, again, for many people is very scary.
But you can turn that to be the fun and exciting thing,
yes,
too.
100%.
I think we were talking about comparison. I think a lot of people compare about what they don't have, right? I don't have this money. I don't have this car. I don't have this. I try to think about comparison about, it could be worse. I could have cancer. I could be a paraplegic. If I try to sit there and think about like, I don't have this, I don't have that, I'm like, this is a foolish way to think about it, because what comes tomorrow is an opportunity that only I have. And someone said it best the other day. It was like, you only have the cards you were dealt, like relating it to a poker game. You can maybe try to acquire new cards, the way you think about things, the way you act. But even that is a work in progress, man. I try to give myself a break on those things. And psychedelics actually help me a lot with that. I talk a lot about weed and mushrooms on here. Those are some of my pastimes that I enjoy. Sure. And I think can help a lot of people in a lot of ways. I think they can harm you too, like anything from a moderation standpoint. But mushrooms specifically opened up a lot of these doors for me, avenues I didn't know that I wasn't using, from an emotional standpoint.
And there's 2 points I want to make. One is about the looking. Somehow, when we're comparing ourselves to other people, we're always looking at people that have more. And somebody pointed out, yes, you're always going to find somebody out there that has more. But ultimately, Stormy and I watched a lot of documentaries. I was a filmmaker for many years, and you find all these people that have all this stuff, and many times when you put yourself in their shoes, it's not really as green as you thought it was.
They're not happy.
But ultimately, we're always looking at people that have more than us. But then when you turn around and you look at the people that have less, there's a lot more people on Earth right now that have less than I. Even though I'm not, a multimillionaire and what have you. If you look back and you realize all the people that have less than you, it is very humbling, because it's like we never look back. We always look at the people that have more. But if you really look back and go, my God, look at it. My children are happy. That's the thing. All these things that we do have, and look at all the people that have less. It really puts it in perspective. But years ago, I heard Michael J. Fox, and everybody go, oh God, I don't want to be Michael J. Fox. He's got, his thing. He was telling kind of a paradigm or a kind of an anecdote of saying, kind of a parable of, God get everybody together, whoever, got everybody together, and they let everybody put their problems or their ailment or their sickness or whatever in the middle of the ring there. And he said, okay, now that it's all your problems and your things are in the middle, you can go in the middle and you can grab anybody else's problems. And everybody looked around and they looked at all the other choices that they had, and they all went out and grabbed their own problem. They walked back out of the circle. And so, I think that it's super easy to think that everybody has it better than you. Yeah. But when you look around and you really say, would I want to trade places with X, Y, and Z? When you really look what you have in comparison to what that person has or doesn't have, my problems are my own, and I guess I fully embrace those problems. Because I look at other people and go, God, I'm glad I'm not them.
Exactly.
And they might look at me and say the same thing, and good for them. Own your life, own your family, own your situation, and let them do that. But sometimes when you're always wanting what the other person has, if you actually ask them, we had Death Ray has a friend, and he's was very successful in his business and things like that. And so we looked at this guy of like, he's retired, he's already doing whatever he wants, he's got all this money, and he's got things. And he said to Ray a few weeks ago, he goes, man, I really wish that I was you. You get to make your music, you're an artist, you get to do this thing. And from a monetary freedom standpoint, we're looking at this guy going, dude, you've got it all figured out. And he's looking at us going, you guys get to make music and this is the life you live and you're just artists and creative and I was this and that. And so it's very funny, and we were joking about it that, that's, we thought, man, he's really got it figured out. We really want to, we'd love some of that. And he's going, I might have done all these things, but the one thing I never did is I never stuck to my guns and just lived my dream and did that.
Dude, but that's everybody though, man. And you're touching on a subject, which is regret. So that guy has regrets. He made all this money. He did all these things. He retired early, but he was never creative. He was never an artist. One thing I don't want when I'm an old man is to sit back and be like, oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. I'd rather do those things, maybe be unsuccessful at them, but at least I did them. To me, regret would be the biggest fear, and that's back to my family and why I spend so much time with my children, because I was the guy chasing money. And I think we went wrong with money somewhere.
Yep.
Somewhere we got to have it. I get it. They had to figure that one out. But the idea, we all need so much of it. I somewhere, and I get capitalism and commercialism got us a lot of things. But somewhere we went wrong, man, with this drive for money. So I sit back and think that I don't want to be that guy that's chasing that all the time. I want to chase happiness and experiences and trying to just have fun, if that jives with you at all.
Well, and I think that's the funny thing about like using the word abundance.
Yeah.
A lot of the spiritual teachers that I'm into and things, they would point out that, if all you're focusing on is your lack, then you're getting an abundance of lack. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like what you choose to focus on, you're getting an adult dose of that. So there's abundance all around us. But if you want abundance of happiness, that's available to you. If you want abundance of depression, I guess you're getting that. The universe is not discerning. Like there's nobody up there saying this is good or this is bad. It's like kind of what we're focusing on is what we're kind of creating for ourselves.
For sure.
And so if you're focusing on all the, and I had to explain this to my son. My son Bodhi is turning 12.
Oh, I love that name.
From Point Break, right? Patrick Swayze.
I was just gonna say that. Don't tell my son. I lost that debate. My son's name is Blake.
Okay.
I wanted it to be Bodhi. I'm a huge Point Break fan. It's a nostalgic movie. My family can quote the whole thing. You named your son after Bodhisattva.
Bodhisattva, yeah. It had for awesome. Us walking more the spiritual path. I think the Bodhi seed and the Buddha and things like that. So yes, but
that's awesome.
Somebody who said to me the other day, oh yeah, like after the guy from Star Wars, I guess in Rogue One or one of the movies, there's a Bodhi in there, and I was like, oh, okay. What?
Yeah, no.
I'm like, no. I'm like, if anything, it was Patrick Swayze when I was a kid. That was the thing. But legit. Knowing that you're a surfer, I knew I could throw that out there and it would land.
Oh hell yeah.
So yeah, the Bodhisattva from Point Break. Loosely, I don't want to say that I named my child that, but yes, Bodhi is turning 12, and Bodhi and I said the same thing. I had to kind of explain this to him because I'm trying to help him along. I'm trying to now. He's getting to the age where we're butting heads a little bit more, and I'm starting to stop being the cop, the dad cop, and starting more to be kind of the spiritual wizard, to kind of be the guru for my son and helping him. He's very powerful and in tune and have great intuition of things. But he was talking about I'll be happy when. He was taking a shower and I was in the thing in the bathroom, and he was kind of telling me about things, and he was going, no, I'll be happy when, and that is the worst thing you can do, because when you keep something at arm's length, I'll be happy when, that when is in the future, and if you continue to move forward, you end up keeping it. You end up moving forward, but it stays the same distance from you. You have to realize that everything that you want is now is the only way to get there,
right.
And that's the vehicle. In the moment is the only way to get to that. And but if you're going to be happy when you get the money will never come. If you can find out how to be happy or at peace or whatever it is now, then it turns into this is in the moment, and then never inevitably those things will come. But when you're postponing what you need today because it's going to happen someday down the road, it will always be someday down the road unless you start to tell yourself a different story, and let's say you pretend that you have it now. And if when it comes to happiness, again, I found in my own life that happiness is just a choice. It's like I can choose to be pissed off that somebody said that to me, or I can not. And that does take some getting rid of the mental gremlins. And I've dealt with a lot of people that that their, let's just say, their mind says a lot of negative things to them, and I have to ask them a lot. if I said the same things that your head says to you, would we be friends? They're like, no.
That's an interesting way to put it.
So a lot of times when I work with people, it's taming the gremlins first until you can kind of calm that brain mind that shit talks all day long. It tells you that you're not good enough. That is the most depowering thing because it's coming from within and you think that's a real thing. And so until you can kind of quiet that mind, you can't really move on to the real things that really need to get done. So, you got to shut that mind up in your head. If the mind's telling you that you're awesome and keep doing what you're doing and you deserve whatever, awesome. Yeah, follow that. But if your mind's telling you that you're a piece of shit and you don't deserve anything and you're worthless, you probably should not listen to that and tell it to shut up. And if you tell your mind to shut up a few times in that regard, it starts to realize, maybe it's not buying what I'm selling. But if it's gonna sell you negativity and you're gonna buy that negativity, it creates a downward spiral, unfortunately.
I think there's a balance of the two, right? You need that mindset that tells you, maybe work harder in this environment. You weren't good enough in this specific environment, but not that you're a piece of shit and you should revel on that. And then you should have a balance of you're doing a good job. You should pat yourself on the back. If you're doing that all the time and you're not taking that introspective look at what you should try to get better at, I think like most things, that line is in the middle, in terms of where you want to try to operate. But when it comes to kids, man, my son's 12 too, and it's interesting, same age. They're different than us, and just as we're different from our fathers in terms of what you're exposed to, and the internet changed a lot of things, and the way they're social now with people and the influences that they have. I have to tell myself that and check in with myself that regularly, especially with my daughter too at 9 now. It's like, man, their world is completely different than even my world.
My mother is in her 70s and she tries, and my parents were fine. I have nothing disparaging to say about them, but my mother tries to give me like parenting advice, and I have to remind her that like, Mom, you don't know what the hell you're talking about anymore. That might have worked in the 80s and the 70s when she grew up and whatever else. But, in this modern era, there is no, I remember as in middle school, where having my first computer and the dial up and the thing and, playing, I was listening to somebody, I think Joe Rogan and Elon Musk were talking about like playing Quake back in the day. And it was like the first like online first person shooter kind of thing. And now it's like, we were on the cusp of all these things. I had a beeper, and now we have a cell. But obviously we know where the technology is today, but it's completely different. Yes. And even my son, he has an Oculus, and he, my wife reminds me all the time that, when I was being social as a kid, I actually got with my friends and we went and did stuff. And a lot of times it was stuff that we probably shouldn't have been doing, but we still had social engagements in that way, where nowadays, my kid jumps on the Oculus and I'm like, well, who are you talking to? He's talking to his friends from school, but they're all on the Oculus together playing Gorilla Tag or playing whatever they play. But it's like, they don't go to each other's house and hang out. And the first time we had one of his friends, come and spend the night at our house or whatever, they spent most of the time both on their electronic devices actually playing together, but so I think the social interaction, everything is totally different. So I don't think that as of right now, we don't have a real comparison of how my dad did or how I did it or how I was raised and how they were raised and how you were raised. That makes no frame of reference because it is a totally new game now.
It's completely different.
And I guess I found the real headbutting that Bodie and I had is I'm trying to employ these old rules that maybe I thought, and to be honest with you, they probably didn't work all that well when they were being used on me.
I was going to ask that.
But I'm trying to apply these older kind of things to this and realizing like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Yeah. So, I take it all in stride. Do you ever
say that to him? Do you ever say that, I don't know what the hell I'm doing?
Yeah, and my parents, it took me many years to realize my parents didn't have it all figured out.
I used to think all adults, when I become an adult, I'm going to have all the answers. And then the older you get, the more like, well, shit, no one has any of the answers. There's no blueprint to this. There's no, this is how it should be. There's obviously things that you could say, you don't want to end up in a cage. You don't want to make a decision, end up in jail for many years or whatever, or do things that may damage the development of your body or your brain or those kind of things. But I tell that to my kids openly, man, that like people have great ideas and you should figure out the own way you think about these things, but people don't really know. And the way history has changed in my lifetime with more understanding, different developments, the internet again, people don't really know much of anything. It's sort of the concept that I've been gravitating to, and I don't know if that's the best thing to teach, but man, I think it seems to jive, especially being transparent about, man, I don't have all the answers. Here's what I think. And when you get to the point, you may find somebody or you may think something different, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I think whatever works for you, as long as you're not hurting other people. Yeah. I mean, I think that's my big, I don't judge anybody for anything, but if I get on a little soapbox about people that have purposely misled people, especially under the guise of spirituality or other things. Yeah. If you've misled people and you're a charlatan and that you're a charlatan, you could be wrong. Yeah. And if you thought you were right and you just turned out to be wrong later on down the thing, as long as you thought you were doing the right thing at the time, I'll give you all the credit in the world. Yeah. But if you walked into it knowing that you were manipulating and you were misleading and you were doing things, I have a real problem with that.
You're talking about politics, man, because that's exactly what I think politics is. These people know that they're either misleading or they're charlatans to that matter. But I don't know, man. I think those kind of individuals are always going to be there. But sure. I think in your own circle, to be able to communicate it in that way is the right way to go about it. As
long as you're not hurting others and you're keeping your integrity. And again, you can be wrong. I'm wrong many, many times. Yeah. But and Stormy and I get in these arguments, and she'll point out something where I did something wrong, and it's like, but I kind of hold my line that my integrity my intentions were pure. Yeah. It might not have worked out the way we wanted it to, but my intentions going into it were pure. So, then it's kind of like, well, whatever happens is going to happen. Right. But I try very hard to, never mislead, always tell the truth. And, a guy years ago, because I've smoked for years and my recollection of things is not ideal.
Same.
And I had a very religious friend many, many years ago tell me, if you always tell the truth, you never have to remember the lie. And I think at that moment in my life, I was probably juggling about 200, lies and keeping all those balls in the air. And it was such a simple thing. And even though, again, he was more religious, quote unquote, I didn't not accept his advice in that regard. As soon as he said that, I was like, oh, that's so bad. So you can ask me something that happened 30 years ago, and I will tell you the truth on what happened, because I don't tell lies anymore, because I have to remember that. And so that weight of trying to keep all those balls in the air and trying to remember, well, that lie that I told and these things, I can't wrap my head around that. And that's why I told Stormy, I always told her that, I would never betray our, and cheat on her or do those kind of things in our relationship, because to walk around with that kind of shit on your chest, and hide those things and have those things, those unspoken things, those are weights, and you're carrying big, life is hard enough. So when you're carrying big boulders on your back and, all these lies and these things you have to kind of maintain, that's problematic.
That's interesting, man. It's like going through life with a weighted vest, those lies and those boulders and those things you got to juggle. But man, it's taken me, as I get older, I'm 36 now, so I'm getting to that point where I'm trying to, over the last at least 10 years, probably definitely into my 30s, is like you, I've spent many years just lying, man, telling people what I think they want to hear, what I think sounds good. So over the last, I'm going to call it a decade now, erasing that and trying to keep that to a minimum, to a never. Obviously nothing is ever perfect. Man, it seems like such a better way to go about it, which I think is great advice for people, just to, it doesn't help anybody, to not be transparent. Transparency is the key for me in a lot of aspects.
And I think in a lot of relationships or anything, or band dynamics or anything, communication, or at work, if somebody, I think communication, and I built most of my career on communication, just saying something, that is uncomfortable. I know it sucks, but, more open communication between anybody, because it's, I didn't say that. And then you did, and you weren't saying it and I wasn't saying it, but man, when we just let that go, not only do we both feel a lot better, but we actually understand where each other are coming from. Yeah. And so, nobody wants to rattle a cage or upset people. And I dig that. But at the same time, you don't have to be a dick about it. You can tell the truth to somebody and not be an asshole.
Right.
But at the same time, that is there's so many huge misses that I find, like I said, in the business world, in the band world, and anything else, by just being open and just communicating openly, it takes it all away. And at least all the cards are on the table. Yeah. Once all the cards are on the table, now we can have communication about how we fix those problems. Marriage, Stormy and I, being in a band, being parents, being in a band, and being married, there's a lot of dynamics going on.
Bunch of dynamics.
People would always think that when we went to shows, like, oh my God, you guys get so much time together, it must be so like romantic, like we're going on dates. And it's like, driving to a gig and playing a show, and then my wife messing up something, and us doing like, that's business. We're also business partners as well. And so those kind of dynamics are interesting, but a lot of times when it's just communicating, you think you're trying to hide something, but it comes out in some other way, or it creates a bigger gap, and you're trying to avoid creating wedges between your relationships. And it's like, but by not saying the thing that really is on you, it just gets the gap gets wider and wider and wider. By just nipping it in the bud and going, listen, when you said that to me, it really bothered me, and I'm not saying that you did it maliciously, but it bothered me, and I'm just kind of putting it out there, and I'm sorry I said that. Oh yeah, good. Now we understand each other a little bit more, and then that helps a long way. But when you go the other way and it's, I'm going to keep it all in, and I'm going to keep it all in, and even just like I said, in a business standpoint, by not telling somebody something and then it eventually comes out, and it's it's just so much bullshit. And you could, by just going, hey man, I did this thing, and then let's deal with that. That opens it up a lot more. But I mean, businesses would run a lot better if they were a little bit more transparent. Everybody's trying to, there's a lot of compartmentalization of things, and I find that that's super detrimental. I mean, I'm an operations guy, so in my personal life, I do a lot of operations work. And running an operation, you have to be pretty clear and
100%.
And the more I can be candid about either making a mistake or not making a mistake, or my expectations. If I was very clear about my expectations to you, that would be, it saves a lot of guesswork. The less guesswork that we all have to do, kind of meandering around. Life's hard enough, but with the more we kind of add this stuff, it starts to complicate things.
I would agree, man. And then keeping stuff inside, sometimes it just builds up to more than it ever even was in the first place. And then if I keep it inside for a week or a month or years, that can be detrimental to yourself physically and mentally. And then you're not sleeping, and the list goes on. But that's where that transparency piece, man. And a lot of times when you are that way in work or in your personal life too, man, it comes out a lot like I was wrong. The way you said that, the way I read that email, the way I read that text message, the perception was completely wrong, and communication helps with those kind of things huge. But I think people have a hard time saying when they're wrong. I try to lean in and love when I was wrong. Like, shit, like I didn't think of it like that, or I'm glad we talked about it because here's how it came across to me, and man, I think, in your life or in business, that's just the better way to be, man, as transparent as possible.
And kind of going back to the band, as we kind of wrap things up here, 15 years, I made a lot of mistakes, and, us as a band, and I wish things, I don't wish they would have been different. I'm happy with how things turned out, but it certainly smartened me up to a lot of things. Nice. And so now seeing the value of being with our family, having a band and having people that we started this thing with, and 15 years in, we're still all together, and we still all love each other, and we still practice every week. We hug each other at the end of the practice. We literally love each other. We are a family, regardless of obviously not being siblings, but we are one big family, and to me that means more than anything. And years and years ago, I had an oracle, or somebody reading the tea leaves told me, John, you're never going to be as successful as you want to be, but you're going to get a family out of this. And I was like, at the time, I was like, what do you mean? We want to win Grammys. We want to go this route. And but now, being 15 years in, I've seen so many bands come and go, obviously locally, certainly more so locally, but even nationally, and I've watched a lot of dear friends pass away, and so not everybody makes it, none of us make it to the finish line. I mean, we're all dying, and we're all getting there, quicker probably than we want. So just to savor it and be out there and go, man, I really just enjoy these people and what we're doing. And I think that, instead of trying to manufacture, as we talked about earlier, trying to manufacture a vibe, when I'm up there playing, there's nowhere else I would rather be. When I'm up there singing whatever the song is, regardless if it's ours or a cover or something else, that's exactly where I'd want to be.
Nice.
And, being up there with those people, just looking around and just smiling. Even when we goof off, or there's a mistake, instead of getting pissed off about it, just going like, we'll get them next time, and kind of laughing about it or having fun with it, that has changed the whole dynamic for us. So for me, I feel blessed every time. And the fact that people, I guess, at this point, we would be doing it if people were caring about it or not, because this is what brings enjoyment to our life. When I'm up on stage and I'm in that moment, or I'm being creative, I feel more alive in that moment than doing any other damn thing I'm doing. Dope, and so that's the drug that I want, is the feeling that vibe of being in that moment with my peers or family or what have you. That is truly what is the special sauce. And that's the thing that even after the whole year of not performing, like that's the thing I missed. Wasn't so much, yes, sharing energy with people and being in crowds and doing that. I'm not big on large crowds. But I like that shared communion with an audience. But ultimately, I selfishly, and we talked about being, selfish earlier. I've always tried to spin the word being self-centered, kind of turning it around because I think it has a negative connotation. But centering yourself and being self-centered from that standpoint is not a bad thing. And normally, when you're not centered, is when the shit happens and catches you off guard.
Right.
So to be centered and be really just in love with, I love my wife. I love that I can sit there and perform with her. There was years that it wasn't always as easy as it is now, being in a band and with somebody, and then, some of these trials and tribulations that we all deal with. But, even with my kid, again, we butt heads a lot now, but it started to get better because I realized that I can't live his life for him. He's got his own life to live. But if I can just enjoy it with him and kind of be, there's some people that go, oh, you don't want to be their friend. You want to be this. Well, I've been a cop to my kid for the bulk of the 12 years, and it has not worked out really well for me.
Interesting.
And so, but also he gave me a new lease on life because I grew up too fast. I was the 10-year-old wanted to be 4. I mean, my whole life I wanted to be 30. My whole life I wanted to be 30. Yeah. And in my 30s had Bodhi, and I realized, oh shit, I robbed myself of my own childhood. I grew up way too fast.
Interesting.
I wanted to smoke cigarettes and hang out with the bad boys and do all, and do all this stuff. And that's, I rushed to get there, only realizing that once you're there, you have the whole rest of your life to be an adult. And once you're mature, you got the whole rest of your life. Yes. And so just to goof off, and, we're playing cards the other day, and Stormy and I are very serious, and we're playing Uno or whatever, and he's just goofing off. And my knee-jerk reaction is, settle down. And then I realized that he's just feeling joy. And to be honest with you, when was the last time, Steve, you felt joy? Or or him and his friend were goofing off at the house, and Stormy's like, God, they're driving me crazy. And I was like, why don't you go tell them to stop and settle down? And I was like, do you hear them in there? And they were just giggling and laughing and acting like complete jackasses. But when was the last time that you let yourself do that? And I was like, Stormy, I wish that I could film this right now and show that to people and go, when was the last time? But so when I tell them to settle down, or all I'm doing is be more serious, where I really don't want that for him, because I've lived a life of very, very serious. I like to break balls and stuff, but I'm not a joke around, tickle me kind of bullshit guy.
That's why I love comedians, man. Why I've been having a few of them on here and talk about it. But I'm kind of the way as I'm getting older. Like, man, I find those moments for joy with my family, with my hobbies, with my interests. I think that's important, And I think with kids, I agree. Sometimes I don't understand their joy, or I think that's a great way to put it.
But if they're feeling it, like I was like, we walked in the other room, we went out and smoked a cigarette, and I was like, I got to be honest with you, I envy them, because we're both out here as two grown adults having a serious conversation. And I was like, and they're in there freaking giggling and laughing and having the most fun.
Having a great time.
I go, you know what? I would rather get more of that in my life than more of this, we're going to have a serious conversation.
Dude, so, I know you got a heart out, but it's an interesting idea. You said they gave you a new lease on life, right? And I would agree. Kids gave me this lease on life that I didn't know I didn't have, but they have allowed me to continue in that joy and that approach of that like child mindset, the learning mindset, the figuring out new things. And they just have so much fun innately, and it's the small things, man. And I think that is a benefit to having children. I do also understand why people maybe don't want to have children from that aspect. I get that too. It's very hard and challenging, but it's rewarding, and selfishly, it's given me that same lease on life. How are we doing on time, man? Because I got two more things. If we got 2 seconds, you good? Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to say is you remind me, your voice and even just meeting you now, of Everlast, man. I wanted to tell you, have you ever heard that before?
I've not heard that.
The way you sing, dude, the way you sing is very similar to me, because I listen to a lot of his stuff, not just Whitey Ford, some of his stuff. Okay. I wanted to ask you if you ever heard that you remind me of Everlast.
No, nobody's ever said that to me.
Okay, that's not offensive, right? You know who he is? Okay,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, and Stormy,
as long as you don't dislike him, then it's like, dude, you remind me of this guy I don't like.
No, I wouldn't have said it if it was somebody I didn't like. But no, you remind me of that guy. And even meeting you so more now, I'm like, damn, this dude is very similar energy from what I understand of what he puts out.
No, I appreciate
and
that.
Stormy, man, her vocals are powerful, man. Did she grow up singing, or how did that whole thing come about?
Yeah, everybody, Stormy, was in chorus growing up, and actually started that. Big Daddy Germ and I had known each other through a mutual friend, and him and Stormy went to high school together, and they hadn't talked in all these years, and so we're putting the band together, and I'm kind of getting pieces. Big Daddy Germ was actually a tuba player in the UCF marching band, and I was like, well, if I know anybody that's got a big lungs, let me approach this guy and to play the jug. And it turned out, you mentioned the Memphis Jug Band. Cannon's Jug Band Stompers, actually, one of his ancestors was in one of the original Jug Bands. And he didn't know. I mean, that was upon research that he found this and was like, oh my God, I asked this guy in 2009 or 2008 to play the jug. So, again, everything, it was meant to happen. But he said, I was like, we really need a female singer to sing in the band with us. And he said, I know this girl that I used to go to high school with. We always really got along, but she was a badass singer. Like, let me call. And Stormy in her life, she was married and divorced and kind of in this interesting time in her life. But she was not pursuing music, and she was not trying to be a musician. She never pursued that path. She's in IT, and she's the more kind of programmer kind of side. So she uses that side of her brain. And he basically said, hey, Stormy, do you remember me? I'm doing this band thing. You wouldn't be bothered with singing songs about the devil and shit like that, would you? And she's like, what? All right. Yeah, let me go check it out. And, walked in my door, and the rest is history. But out of all the people, I mean, and I don't think anybody in the band at this point is replaceable. I mean, we're all who we are. But, Stormy and I, the way our vocals meld, she has a very, I don't want to say low, but very big, throaty vocal. Yeah. And, people compare her to Janis Joplin and things like that. But that's just because that's the only female vocalist that people can, kind of spearhead. Yeah. But, and I'm a big Tom Waits guy, and I love that kind of, and I'm a huge Motorhead guy. So like the Lemmy and the lower vocals, but I'm not trying to sing like that, just how I sing. My balls dropped when I was like 10. So, you have what you have. You have what you have. And nice. So, but now looking at what a blessing it is to have her and I together, also being married. But, truly, I mean, that's, I will say from my standpoint, I know it was different from her, but, I truly fell in love with her by singing on stage with her like that, because there's nobody else. I've sang with other people. Stormy sings with other people. We've had Ray sings, and but nobody sounds like what her and I do. And we had that before we were ever married. But when people hear us, they go, "Wow!" So people aren't surprised when they hear that we're married, because I love this band Shovels and Rope. They have a very similar, different vocal style, but when they sing together, it's like, oh my God, they were meant to do this. And that's how I feel with Stormy. It's like our vocals, if she was higher or more pretty or more whatever, it's like our vocals are both kind of growly in a different way. She definitely makes me sound good, because I'm more of an entertainer than a singer. Certainly gotten better through the years, but no, our melding of the two was magic. And that's the thing that I find that through it all, just singing with her is great. But then again, that overall collaboration, which is a neat thing of having such a many years, it was a very large band, but being open-minded that I have influences. I was more into punk and folk and this other here, but Big Daddy Germ was into this, and Seth Funky's into funk music, and Stormy was into like old country, like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and that stuff. So to kind of bring in all these different influences is really cool, because it allows us to stay super genuine. Yes. And we didn't all grow up in Kentucky and have the exact same thing. We none of us went. Stormy and Germ did, but none of us went to high school together. None of us knew each other as children or young adults. We all met each other later in life, and so kind of going, let's have this guy do this, and let's do this, and let's do that, and then watch that evolution kind of happen. It's been cool, and it's allowed a lot of other influences to happen where people have a hard time kind of pegging our influences, because over the course of 15 years we've kind of gone in several directions. It's because we personally have different influences, and I'm also open to, hey, we should check this song out. Cool. We kind of stayed in my lane, which is, we talked about kids earlier. That's the one thing I think that they have that I wish that I would have had it going up, is that, Bodie can ask Alexa to play anything. And I live and die by, even though I know people get anal about the Spotify and the royalties and shit like that. I will say that as a user of Spotify, also a band that has music on Spotify, we probably couldn't be heard in 100 countries or 200 countries, whatever we're heard, without that access. But when I was a kid, I had to go to CD Warehouse or go to the local shop and go to the Daddy Cools and buy my tickets to the show or to some punk rock show. But if I didn't have the money to buy that album, I didn't listen to it. So if I had friends that were that was kind of in the Dr. Dre era, and so I had friends that were getting into the rap game and I was in the punk game, and we were all doing different things, and some friends were in the metal, but we didn't have the money to buy all the other stuff, and so maybe we'd let each other borrow CDs. But now you can get exposed to so many things.
Oh, for sure.
And there is no real rhyme or reason. I mean, there is no such thing as really a guilty pleasure anymore, because it all is cool. It's like, we joke that like I listened to on the way to like a gig. One day we were driving in the car, and like I had like Patti Smythe's Warrior, which is a very like quintessential 80s song, and it's like, I just have a hard on for that song. And it's like, so my playlist has got all kinds of crazy shit on it. And it's, but I used to stay very much in that one lane. And so when we first got the band together, I mean, it wasn't like it is now. So everybody had to bring their own influence. What are you into? What are you into? What are you into? Now it's kind of like we're all into everything. And I think that's really only expanded our horizons and made us over the course of time. It's when you look back, again, being a film guy, I went to college for cinema studies, and you look at the whole body of the filmmaker, like a director's work. You don't look at Steven Spielberg's film, you look at his auteur, his whole cinema, his whole catalog. And that's kind of what I think, when people were following U2 throughout the years, they got probably pissed off that this or Bruce Springsteen, they went in this different direction. But, 30 years later, when you look back at the whole catalog, it makes sense as a collective whole. And that's what we hope, that the fans are always along for the ride, and they know that, we have an idea of what we're doing, and we're faking it the best we can along the way. But we just released a song on Halloween, a new single called Horror Double Feature, and it really panders exactly to that. Most of our early year crowd was that kind of a horror convention kind of crowd that were into that type of thing, and we got a lot of love from them very early on, and so we made a song that directly pandered to that. But I have a friend out in California who directed many of our music videos, and he was like, I wish it was a little spookier, darker sounding. But it was like, we wanted to do the modern Monster Mash, and we wanted to go in this other direction. So, again, trying to dictate or live by other people's expectations of what we should or shouldn't be doing, as long as we're happy with it. Bingo. I guess that's all I can really do right now. And I hope that when they all look back, they go, maybe I didn't get that at the time. And there's lots of music that at that time I didn't get what that band was doing. Right. But now looking back, I go, God, I'm so glad they made that album. Or that Departure album became my favorite album because I was so sick of listening to the other shit they were doing. So I hope that when people look back at our catalog and our body of work and what we are doing now, the body of work has actually become my number one priority. For many years, for the bulk of the 15 years, playing shows was what we wanted to do. But you realize that we have so many fans all over the globe that have never seen us play live. I've never been to France. I've been to France personally, but I've never been to France with the band. And, so when somebody says something, you realize that that body of work is going to outlast us all. Yes. I'm a big Meatloaf fan. I'm a big Warren Zevon fan. I'm with a Lemmy fan. I got to see Motorhead live, several times. I got to see these people live, and I got to do these things, but, it maybe wasn't the heyday and all that kind of shit, but, Lemmy's dead, and Warren Zevon's dead, and Meatloaf's dead, and all these guys are dead, and a couple of them are still alive. But once they're dead, that music still becomes timeless.
It lives on, man.
Bruce Springsteen's going to die someday. Tom Waits going to die someday. Yes. Some of these guys that are huge influences to me, Alice Cooper, when these people die, and they're going to stay dead, and so it's that body of work. And so now we look back at yes, we've entertained a lot of people live and they've seen a lot of shows, and what a blessing that is. But there was only so many hundred people at that show, or so many thousand people at that show. But when we're reaching audiences on a global level now, I only really want to focus. We pick up shows, and we have plenty of shows, coming up, but it's one of those things where I really, in the time we have left, let's just say, because I don't know if we can do it for 30 years. I mean, we'll see. As long as somebody goes up there and goes, man, I've seen I saw 38 Special play a show or something. It's like, geez, these guys are tired. I never want to go up there and be like a shadow of what we once were. Right. As long as we can still put on world-class shows, then we'll still play live, because I love the live dynamic. But all I care about now is the body of work that we're putting out, and we're churning out. We had a hiccup at one point, and like a took it like 5 years to come out with a new album. It was studio screwed up, and we were doing it was just a lot of bullshit. But now it's like we want to come out with music every year, a new album every year, and do it because when we're all dead or we all can look back on it. That's the thing that, again, 50 years ago, after I'm long in the grave, somebody can go, my God, you ever hear the Bloody Jug Band and other thing? And that body of work will hopefully still, if the world doesn't burn, and there's still the access to get that, to be turned on to something that you never found. It's like people could discover us right now, and that's just as good as somebody that was with us the whole time.
That's me. I discovered you recently, but now I'm along for the ride, man. Your guys' authenticity, as I mentioned, and even just the way you're describing it. I think there's something to, even why I'm doing this podcast is because the body of work. I don't want to be an old man someday again and look back and not know what I thought about or who I met or what communities I was able to be a part of, right? And that's sort of why I'm even doing this, is because I want to look back someday at that body of work. And if people dig it, cool. If not, oh well. I will look back someday and be able to think about what I thought about when I talked to this person, because in this day and age, again, as long as the earth doesn't blow up or nukes don't hit us or the sun doesn't take us all out or whatever, that we'll save that for a different conversation, man. But I know you got it hard out and you've been real generous with your time. But the last thing I want to say, man, is where can I find you live? I want to see you guys live. I'm along for the ride. My kids love you too. My son loves the band and the music, and so does my daughter too, man. She's on board with the Bloody Jug Band. But where should I catch you live?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, bro.
Well, I'm not sure. So when is this going to air?
I'll probably have this out either tomorrow or the next day.
So I think the next show the only show that's on the books for the end of the year is an event called Krampus Fest.
Krampus Fest.
Okay. Krampus Fest is in the Milk District in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
So if you're in Central Florida, actually where the Plaza Live Theater is, in the Mills Bumby area. But if anybody in Central Florida or knows anything about Orlando, the Milk District is a thing.
Yeah.
We're playing in the Milk District.
The old T.G. Lee area. Is that why they call it the Milk District?
That's why they call it the Milk District.
That's right. Okay.
But for people that live in other areas, they don't, but we're Orlando locals. So we do play all over, predominantly in the Southeast in Florida. Florida's a big state. Yeah. So when you go down to the swamps and then go to the South, you go to the North, there's a lot of different areas. But but we're playing Krampus Fest, and that's just that's kind of a spooky, another reason to dust off the spooky and bring it into the holiday. I believe that we're playing with Bad Santa and the Angry Elves, and which is kind of the quintessential badass holiday band, to give you what you want.
Nice.
And we're looking at new shows, but I spent so much time actively worrying about booking shows, and again, we were always getting ready. I think that's why some of the albums took longer than we wanted them to, because we were always focused on the next show and getting ready for the next show, and then heaven forbid we lost a band member, somebody left or got kicked out or what have you. We had to work up this new person. It was always about getting the show. And one day we realized that we're not obligated to play any of these shows. Let's just play the shows that come to us. And so I've kind of stopped actively trying to beat the tree and beat the bush and kind of get the shows booked. The shows that need to happen are happening, and they come to us, and we're playing a show this weekend that
Brooksville, right?
In Brooksville, that I don't think this will air by the time that happens. No. But this is a festival that is just our peers, other musicians that we respect. They all get together once a year and they play a festival.
It's like a camping festival, right? I looked it up. I was like, damn, that would have been dope because we love camping.
And it's twice a year. This is the smaller one in the fall, but there's one in February. It's called Antimaceris, the Rock and Roll People's Party, and it's been going on for 30 years or something like that. But it's really a chance that all the musicians get together and they all camp and they all kind of play for each other, which is a unique thing because I don't get to go see a lot of those other bands because either I'm on stage or I'm dealing with the family or we're recording or doing something. So the chance to actually get together and spend time with your peers, and when you're done, we all get to camp and hang out with each other.
Beautiful.
Stormy and I love going to Tosahatchee and camping on our own. But
that's right by my house. That's where we camp regularly. Yeah, we're out there in December actually.
And so we're going. We're out there in December as well as far as camping, but camping with your peers it changes the dynamic a little bit. And so, again, with this many years in, it's all about just having fun, coming out with new music, trying to push ourselves into maybe areas that we haven't, on the path, beating our own path in a new area. Like I said, this new album that's coming out, last year we came out with an album called How to Train a Spooky Horse. That's done well for us. And then the new album, as I said, we dropped a single horror double feature on Halloween. But the new album will be out on December 13th. It's called Deviled Eggs. Deviled Eggs. And Wicked Chickens Lay Deviled Eggs. And so we've got...
I have that in my house, a sign that says Wicked Chickens Lay Deviled Eggs, bro. I really do. I can't believe you just said that. And so we had 50 chickens for a while, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, so the album is called Deviled Eggs.
That's hilarious.
And it actually has a recipe for the deviled eggs in the liner notes. If anybody's going to buy the CD or the physical product.
Do you do vinyls at all? Or?
We're working on it. Okay. Vinyls are so expensive, but nowadays, really? As far as to the making of the vinyls,
producing them.
But now nobody has a CD player, so now it's like vinyls are. We've played and toured with several bands that they don't even bring CDs anymore. They just bring the vinyl because it's either you're going to listen to it on Spotify or streaming, or you're going to buy the vinyl for yourself for the collectability or what have you. So. We are looking more into that, but
beautiful.
At one time we had hot sauce, we had every other damn thing. But I'm a big fan of like bands like the Misfits and Motorhead. That there's a plethora of merchandise to get, but sometimes maintaining that merchandise and kind of staying up on that and kind of I'm not disparaging people for buying our merch, but sometimes keeping up with the orders and things. Since we are a kind of insulated unit, I don't have people that do that, so it's one of those things that we have to get around and make time.
It's all in house.
It's all in house. And so, but it's an absolute blessing. And again, new music coming out. A lot of, if you watch us on Instagram is usually our main thing. So I don't think I think Facebook is becoming the MySpace. But at the BJB is our Instagram handle. I mean, anything that's ever posted on Facebook gets posted on Instagram first and trickles its way down. But we have lots of music videos. So if you go on YouTube, I think it's YouTube / the Bloody Jug Band, and we have a huge YouTube channel. We've been making music videos for every bit of the 15 years. I just released recently, I made a video using AI, and so we did a cover on the last album called Coming Up the House by Tom Waits, and so we released my first foray of dealing with AI and did a whole AI video, but we have videos with puppets, videos with green screens, videos with documentary style videos. Held to Pay actually showcases Tosahatchee. We shot it right there by the St. John's River.
No way.
And Held to Pay was on 2 albums ago, but Stormy sings it, so we shot it there with drones, and we're right there in Tosahatchee. So if people are listening and who aren't from Central Florida and they want to get a little bit more of a taste of what Central Florida is like, they can watch that, and Stormy sings lead on that song. So,
dude, I've watched that video. I didn't connect that's right there at Tosahatchee.
Yeah, if you watch it again, you can see the power line. So and we're right on the banks of the St. John's, and so our Florida roots mean a lot to us, and being that swamp rock Florida swamp band. Kind of turn other people onto it, and we want to be as fun and accessible as possible, and not to be taken too seriously. We're just having fun, and we want people to have fun along the way with us.
Dude, I'm there. I'm having fun with you, man. I'm gonna catch you live. I'm gonna listen to the new album too. I'll give my top 4 real quick. Okay, if that's cool.
Yeah.
Held to Pay was the first
Stormy
one.
At this point, Stormy's taking an Uber, so it's fine.
Damn it, bro.
It's fine.
She can be mad at me already. Held to Pay was the first one that made my playlist.
Okay.
Come On Up to the House. That one made my playlist. Love that jam. What else? Wanted Man in Hell. Right? Love that song. And Ponderosa. Those were the first 4 that I was like, oh shit, I got to find this guy. I got to see if he wants to connect. But now I'm listening to everything, man. I'm excited for the new album. And again, you've been real generous with your time. Love the roots to Florida. And just a cool dude, man. I think we connected on a lot of fun things that people can take maybe something away from. If not, I enjoyed the time, man.
I know we delved down the spiritual path, but it's hard to have a conversation with me that doesn't eventually go that way. Because we're all we think we're living like a human experience, like but it's like we're all just spirit and having the best time we can. So I think people should just enjoy life the most they can and flow as much as they can, because taking it too seriously, again, we're all going to die. And, and if this is our one shot at, being here, if it's a video game or it's a movie or however you want to look at it, and if you're the star of your own movie, why would you want to be in a shitty movie?
For real.
And, although most people don't want to watch a movie where everybody's just hugging and glad handing each other all day,
right.
There's a little drama in the thing, but ultimately, if you're the lead of your own movie, which why wouldn't you be? You're going to put yourself in a bit part of your own movie. Like that doesn't make any sense.
No.
You're the lead character in the movie, so enjoy it. Make it the life that you want to be. Anybody can always reach out to us. We love our fans. We're humbled by the fans. Obviously, they keep us doing it. Yeah. You can also go to bloodyjugband.com, which is our website. People still have websites. That's ours. We're so old school. I actually have the email that we read, which I think we were having email problems at the beginning because it shows what an asshole I am. We've got bloodyjugband@aol.com.
Yes,
so I'm like the only guy out there. Everybody else, and it gets flagged as spam. I mean, yes, we have Gmails, and I have my own business and things. But you can reach us. But it's funny that, man, you hang onto that AOL train long enough. At one point, it just became like too fun to get rid of.
Sure.
Where I think the Bloody Jug Band at Gmail would probably get to my inbox a little bit easier because the rest of the world is thinks that AOL is spam. But so we like to be old school and we like to be new school, and so we kind of like to mix that. But as we talked about earlier, even bringing that old, people that don't know, I literally play the washboard on stage, and I have legit washboards that were made back in the day that people wash their clothes with.
I feel a little embarrassed. I'm not exactly sure what a washboard is. I think I've seen you play it in a music video, but it's literally like what they used to wash clothes with. You just said it.
Yeah, what they used to wash clothes with. And so even though I had a stint at Guitar Center and I work at a music manufacturer, or a music instrument manufacturer right now, you can't go buy strings for, you can buy strings at a store and these things like that.
Right.
I legit play old, 1920s, 30s washboards that are, you buy on eBay. They're like some dude selling them as an antique. And I literally, I refurb them all, and I've got boxes of, unfortunately, when I wear through them, I play them with shotgun shells and thimbles. And so when I wear through them, I have to go buy another one. I can't, I'm metal exposed, I wear through this thing. But back in the day, before there was, washing machines, and people hung their clothes out to dry, they legit washed their clothes in a wash basin with a washboard.
Okay.
And and Zydeco washboard players have more of a kind of a full body armor thing. People that come from Louisiana and that type of style. But I buy legit old washboards that have a patina and nice. Water wear from damn near 100 years of whatever, and they sit in some guys. It's like a wall hanger sitting on some guys. Like if you ever go to Christmas, Florida, they have that ancient, old, not ancient, but the old civilization. There's washboards and all that shit around there because that's what people did. And so still to this day, everybody else in the band, when they break something, they get to go buy a new thing, and I have to go refurb up a washboard. So I always keep a couple. People ask me, I always keep a couple in kind of reserve. I'm always kind of working on one and refurbing one up because they're kind of a pain to bring back to life. And then I paint them and make them an art project of mine. But
that's cool.
But I always have to keep a couple because if I blow through it, and if we have back-to-back shows, we're playing a long stint of shows. Excuse me, and I wear through one of them. I can't just go the next day and
find one real quick.
Go down to Guitar Center or Sam.
So you got to bring a couple with you just to be prepared.
Just to be prepared, because
what are you hitting it with? Your hands, or
I play with. I think traditionally people would play it with spoons.
Okay.
I have really bad carpal tunnel or really bad hands.
Oh, damn.
So think about like having to sit there and hold a spoon for a couple hours. Like it would be terrible. You're putting a lot of pressure on that one muscle. So I use shotgun shells. I cut off 12-gauge shotgun shells on my index fingers, and then on my ring finger I use thimbles.
Oh, damn.
And so I use a thimble, which is like a thimble for like a sewing thimble, and shotgun shells, and it allows me to be a little bit freer with the thing.
Cool.
And so it creates the sound that I want. But there's one specific washboard that I buy, this 803 model that was made, like I said, damn near 100 years ago, and that's the one because it's made of brass, so it's a little bit warmer, because you can go very quickly to a lot of the washboards they sell nowadays, if they do sell them, you can go to a store and it's like musical washboard, but they're a little tiny thing and it's made out of like tin. This thing's not really made for beating on it. But if anybody ever saw how I attack the thing or how we attack as a band, I can't pussyfoot around on this thing. I beat the shit out of it, and so I need something that's gonna wear and tear until I literally tear through it and big hole, and then I'm afraid I'm going to cut my finger off. So I play around it for a while, or I use it at practice, and then I eventually retire it, and it becomes diehard fans end up eventually talking me out of them. It's I've got boxes of them, and I kind of keep them as kind of a testament of I did this, but once in a while a fan will get us to mean something. They'll mean something to us, or they'll negotiate me getting rid of one of them. Yeah. It's like Bodie's retirement fund. Someday it'll be like, Bodie, long after I'm dead, somebody will give a shit about these, and you can sell Daddy's old washboards as an heirloom, or put one in every rock and hard rock cafe around the country or something.
Beautiful, man. This I got to see. I got to see you with shotgun shells on your fingers up there jamming on that thing, man. I'm looking forward to that. Milk District, I'm going to be there. I'll link all your information in the description below. I'll share this to
Fest.
you.
It's December 8th. It's Sunday, December 8th.
Okay,
Sunday, December 8th in the Milk District in Orlando, Krampus Fest. Yeah. And then the new album, which is called Deviled Eggs, will be out on Friday the 13th in December. And 9 brand new songs, one badass cover. I'll leak it here. Nobody knows what we're every album. I come from the punk world where we always drop a cover on every album if we can, and we're covering Ace of Spades. And so usually we like to put an obscure cover out there. Nobody knows that we're dropping Ace of Spades, so this is a world debut of that information.
Nice.
And that's like such a quintessential song. So when you do something a little bit more obscure, I think you have a little bit more leeway to get away with something.
Fun.
But we thought, so we have a completely different approach to Ace of Spades. We're super happy with it, and it's our first attempt to take like a quintessential song that even if you didn't give a shit about Motorhead, everybody's heard Ace of Spades, one of the top 100 rock songs or whatever. So to take a song that's so timeless and so many people have covered and done it exactly the same way, and then to do it in a completely different approach is so we're super excited about people to see what the Bloody Jug Band does with Ace of Spades.
Hell yeah, man. I'm excited. I'm all along for the ride. Like I said, man, you've been real generous with your time. You ever want to come back, bring in the band members, dude? This is sort of the format. We sit around, we talk, we have a beer or two, and just kind of hang out and dive into all kinds of stuff, man. But I'm going to get out there, see you in person, and I'll share all this information, bro. But this was fun, man. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope to see you down the road, and thank you so much, Steve.
Absolutely,
It was a pleasure.
man. Thank you. Pleasure. Yeah. Whew.